So good afternoon to all of you who are here in this conference room, and also welcome to those who are online. I think more people are online than those who are in the conference room. So welcome to this lunchtime seminar organized by our Philip Wong Center for Chinese Law of the Faculty of Law at HKU. I'm Professor Albert Chen, and I will be chairing this seminar. The seminar is in English, but during the discussion, you're welcome to speak in Chinese, 普通话, or Cantonese. And Professor Sun, the speaker today, will also supplement, if necessary, what she is saying in Chinese. So the title of the seminar is Legal and Institutional Innovation of Local People's Congress in China. And the research which Professor Sun has done covers the period of 2012 up to the present. We are very fortunate to receive as a visitor to the faculty in the capacity of the Leslie Wright Fellow, Professor Sun Ying from the Zhongshan Daxue, the Sun Yat-sen University Faculty of Law, where she has been teaching for many years. Actually, Professor Sun is a PhD graduate of our Faculty of Law, and she has also been a visiting scholar at various overseas universities, including Vienna University and Yale University. So she has, for many years, researched into the People's Congress system in China, and her numerous publications include articles published in China Quarterly, Journal of Contemporary China, Asian Survey, etc. So she has also written books on the subject, and I believe that her presentation today is based on a recently published book, which I think was only published in which year was that? This book edited by Professor Sun Ying, only published this year by 中国民主法治出版社, and the Chinese title of the book is 法学与政治学视野下的人大制度。And I'm sure that we are all very interested to learn about Professor Sun's research, particularly at the level of local people's congresses. I think the existing scholarship covers more the National People's Congress. People in Hong Kong are quite familiar with the National People's Congress, which has made decisions in relation to Hong Kong and enacted the Basic Law itself in 1990. But I think we would like to learn more about the local people's congresses, which is Professor Sun's talk. So may I now hand over to Professor Sun.
Thank you, Professor Chen. Professor Chen is one of the scholars who I admire most, and he's deeply respected by almost everyone I know in mainland China. And thank you for Professor Zhu Jiangnan's comment. Your criticism is most welcomed. Okay, I will cover a lot of topics, so I have to be quick. I studied People's Congress for 20 years by now. There are already a lot wonderful studies on this topic. I think the way I see it, when Western overseas scholars study China's political and legal reform, the fundamental logic is how is China changing, right? Where is China going? So this applies to the study of people's congressional reform. So those books, they cover the same topic. Their observation or summarization of China's Congress, I think they study this from the approaches of liberalization, democratization or institutionalization. Those are very good research, but I think there might be a research gap or maybe a shortcoming because they all study China's Congress from a Western style, from a Western perspective of legislative development, like political confrontation, checks and balance of power, and like autonomy, something like that, etc. But I think study China's Congress, you have to look at the history, right? The tradition of Chinese political culture, political tradition. So I think I propose go beyond the traditional approach to look at China's congressional reform. It's not mature. I'm just brainstorming here. So I think besides the previous summarization of liberalization, democratization, I think the way I see it, as far as I'm concerned, the development path of Chinese Congress might be legalization and innovation. It's not, again, it's not mature summarization, just thinking about these two development paths. So today I cover those 4 parts of congressionality in China. First, history. Second, structure, function. Third, legal development. Fourth, innovation. Okay. If you think about it, Congress in China is really a brand new thing. China is one of the oldest civilization in the world, right? We have 1,000 years of civilization. Most of the time, we don't have the idea of constitution or rule of law or democracy or modern legislature. To think about it, when Simon convened the first modern legislature, modern parliament in UK in 1265, 1265年. At that time, China is still in Song Dynasty. Can you imagine that? When we were in Song Dynasty, England already has a practice of modern legislature. So it's really a new thing. I downloaded this photo from Professor Chen's social media. Yeah, do you remember that? 立宪万岁. Okay, as late as the Qing Dynasty, that's when China imported the idea of the concept of constitution and legislature. And later, we have this period of Republic of China, 民国. I think 民国 is really similar to Western style ruling, civil society, multiple party in the parliament, assessing, a lot of strikes and demonstrations in the society, something like that. And it didn't last. It didn't last. So although it has many national assemblies convened, but it's really not at work because the country is not unified at wars at that time. In the meantime, Communist Party controlled area, Shanganning area, they experimenting a mechanism of voting, of election, and the parliament is called bin voting, 斗选. Have you heard of that? Because of the high illiteracy in this area, the peasants, they didn't know how to vote. They didn't write or read. So they cast bins in the balls. Each ball represents a representative. That's how the one who gets the most bins elected successfully. So that's how the Communist Party experiment, it's called advisory council, but actually it's like a formal previous practice of People's Congress at that time. And this practice was recorded by a famous English reporter, Gunther Stein, in the book, The Change of Red China. So those are the previous practice histories before the birth of National People's Congress and Local People's Congress. So it's in 1954 when China has a first session of NPC, National People's Congress, and the Congress at various levels. We convened this Congress to pass our first constitution, right? Because China was founded in 1949, but we only have our constitution in 1954, right? So as you see, the movement at that time, so election and Congress at that time was built up to represent the birth of a new regime, people's regime. So it carries this symbolic function, right, of unitary and democracy and everything. So I divided, it might not be correct or true, I mean, that perfect, but I divided this developmental stage into these 3 stages or 4 stages. Not much to say to the early stage, because we know most of the time the Congress was dormant, right? Because Cultural Revolution and everything, the rule of law is at that time is very different. So I think from 1979, the establishment of Local People's Congress Standing Committee is a landmark for the development of congressional system in China. So although I divided this into different stages, first stage is institutionalization, but I think legalization is always on the way, right? Each stage carries some feature of legalization. We started rule of law reform. We launched this rule of law reform, and this reform is going on and on, right? Still today, still go on. So the first stage in 1979, we passed new laws in the field of election, of organization, and regulating the behavior of the deputies. And then we revised the election law several times. So this is the first stage, and it's very, very important for the development of Congress. The second stage is, I call it legalization and the regulation, because at that time, the milestone for the development is a promulgation of legislation law, 立法法, and the supervision law, 监督法. Okay, because the most two important functions for the legislature is to supervise and make laws. Right? So it was passed. Those laws are passed in 2000s, and the laws of deputies, law of the organization of election also revised in this period of time. But I call it a regulation because at that time, I think most of the revision is about regulating how you make laws, regulating how you supervise, regulating the behavior of the deputies. And from 2012, that's what we call new era of socialist rule of law, socialist democracy, new period of governance in China. I call this period legalization and innovation, because most revision of the law is about innovation. It's about regulating, but also about innovation, experiments to try new things to better exert the function of the legislature. Okay, so the first period of time in 1970s, I think the most important thing is the establishment of the standing committee. Okay, so these are the times, right? So Tibet is the first one to establish a standing committee, and Qinghai, so those are the border area, and then Xinjiang and Henan, so the border and then the center. So Chongqing is a new city directly under control of Central, so it's in 1997, but most of the time it's happened in 1970s and the early 1980s. Standing committee. So now, if we describe the structures and functions of the Congress, it's a 5 level, right? 5 level. At the top is what Professor Chen said. Hong Kong residents most familiar with NPC because NPC interprets the Hong Kong Basic Law, right? Most of the interaction between Hong Kong and China, mainland China, is by the NPC. But Local People's Congress sometimes overlooked by overseas study, but it's also important in local governance. So standing committee is a very unique feature for Chinese political system. Because in the world, worldwide speaking, there are only two systems of parliament or chambers, unicameral and bicameral. Unicameral means this country only has one chamber, right? One assembly. But the most important Western countries, they use bicameral, 两院制, right? Like US, like UK, even Germany and French, I think. They are, for most time, the federal states, they use this bicameral system. But China is like a derivation of a unicameral system, but it has a permanent standing committee, this organ, to better exert its obligation. So it's very different from other parts in the world. So this is what I copied from a local People's Congress. So right now, almost every level above the county level, they establish their standing committee. They have the special committees in charge of each area of governance, but they also have a standing committee which has a subordinates, right? Subordinate subunits, also in charge of those areas. You can see they are like corresponding to each other. So this, after the LPC has a standing committee, it like becoming more and more like a bureaucratic body and work on a daily basis, hire employees, and it convened. We have this statistics to tell you the difference and it made in the function of the Congress. So this is Guangzhou's LPC and the LPCSC. It even has retired cadres, everything here. Okay. So if a local People's Congress doesn't have a standing committee, it's very hard for it to behave, right? Because as we all know, Chinese deputies, they are part-timers, right? They are part-timers, they are not paid. They have their main job as like government officials, like doctors, like managers, like CEOs, like professors, right? So, and they only have meetings like once a year. So how can you count on them to behave like as people's delegates? But the standing committee has fewer members and more meetings, so they can better exert their functions. So if you compare, we all know the NPC has almost 3,000 deputies. That's a large number, and they only have meetings less than 2 weeks, usually for the most of the time. So it's not that easy to let everyone speak at the panels, right? But the standing committee of the NPC, right, the number is largely, enormously downsized, 3,000 downsized to less than 200. So they can have meetings more regularly, more frequently, and they can discuss real things. So it's the same at the local level, right? So if you look at the number of the plenary session, even a city's deputy, I think they have the number over, I think they have more numbers than most Western countries' National Assembly. But so after that, the standing committee actually become the legislature at work, at function. So if you compare the meeting period, the total number of the meetings they held each year, the standing committee has more meetings than the plenary session, averagely. And most laws at the national level and the local level are passed by the standing committee. So I and my students, we counted several, mostly in Guangdong. I think it represents most part of China. The plenary session almost passed laws recently, but most laws local laws passed by the standing committee. So standing committee become the real, more like real legislature. Same pattern applied to the national level, right? So NPC only pass very, very important laws, but the NPCSC has most laws. Okay, this is the image we have on the deputies when they attend the meeting. Okay. And who are the deputies? I have this early publication. This is well accepted by the academia. I think most workers cited this article because it describes the process of how a local Congress select and elect its deputies. So I get this data from Shenzhen, and those are the deputies. It's in theory, it is supposed to represent every social class in the society. I mean, according to law, each social class should have their representative to the Congress to speak up for them, to represent their interests and voices. It's written in election law that the NPC and the LPC should have a broader representativeness. It should have a proper amount of grassroots deputies, especially workers, peasants, intellectuals. I don't know why intellectuals are basically grassroots deputies. And there should be certain number of female deputies, and the female deputies should be so after each election, the CCTV will broadcast the proportion of deputies, and it's a positive thing that the peasants, workers, the proportion of them is increased, and the women deputies number are increased. So there's a positive thing to broadcast or to propaganda, I think. Okay, what are the functions? I think a difference, as Professor Chen just introduced, I just came from University of Yale, and I did some research on legislature in US. So it's very unique for China to have so many laws regulating deputy behaviors, right? In US, I don't think they have law to regulate the deputies' behaviors, because the deputy should behave according to his or her own, willingness and respond to their voters, right? So that interaction between voters and the delegates is very freestyle, not regulated by law. But China passed many laws to regulate deputies. I think that's why I call it its legalization development. So we have deputy law, we have legislation law, and the supervision law. And the President Xi, I think he put a lot of emphasis on the Congress work. So this is the first time for the party center to have a meeting focused on the Congress work in 2021, and many very important directions were given at that meeting, and I cited it quite frankly. I think from 2012, I call it innovation period. What are the innovations? Basically, I think most of innovation happened in these three areas. First, it's at this meeting, presidency emphasized that we should strengthen the ties between deputies and the voters. And at the local level, they experiment many new supervision methods. Finally, the legislation law was revised to improve the legislative system and perfect the legislative procedure. The deputy law in China has mainly 4 parts. I think it's mainly 2 parts. One is how the deputy behave during the meeting. Second, how the deputy behave outside the meeting, 就是开会期间和闭会期间, right? They are all how they should behave, all regulated by the law, and also how we guarantee the deputies to better function as deputies, and how the people supervise the deputies. So what are the innovations? In 2013, the 18届三中全会, right? The CPC Central Committee Planning Session passed its decision on further reform, and it said that we should fully exert the function of representatives. We should strengthen the ties between deputies and people through various ways, like liaison office, like online forums, and all the channels. So the deputy law was revised this year, 2025. It says to entrench the forms of deputies' contact with the people, strengthen their work capacity building. Those are the translation from the official channel. So what are the examples? I was invited each year by the local People's Congress. I was a legal consultant to many local People's Congress. Each year I visited these sites. It's called 家站点, deputies home, deputies office, deputies like workstation, deputy home. Each streets grassroots governance unit has a deputy home, nice building provided to the deputies for there to meet and read and learn and discuss and meet with their voter. Liaison's office. So you may wonder whether these sites, work sites, they are just for show, just a formality for socially democracy, or they has real effects in local governance. That's something I wonder. Okay. Does this really, make a difference? Shenzhen, like a pioneer local unit to explore the deputy work because they have some people there work on this area. So this is 2013. I think it's like first batch in the country to set up 社区联络站, basic level liaison office stations. They make plans for the deputy to receive visits from the people regularly. And also in 2013, they have this first session of deputy forum in Shenzhen to invite the reporter and the deputies to criticize, to dialogue with government and the voters. Deputy group. This is Shanghai. They provide assistance, technical assistance to each deputy to online interact with their voters. So I think this, we can call it an innovation, right? In 2016, the party center issued a notice to suggest, to give advice, to direct that local People's Congress should establish a personal profile to record the performance of deputies and members of political consultative conference. And such record would be a consideration for whether to nominate those deputies for the future, re-election. And this also was observed by the deputy law. So in the revision of deputy law, it's said that the Congress should record the deputies' performance and arrange deputies to report their performance to their voters. I think it's a good thing. So when I visited a local People's Congress, I see on the wall, there is this display of each deputy's score. If you attend more Congress meetings, you have more score, right? You are more active, you get more score. But if your score is very low, the local people's Congress will persuade that lazy or absent deputy to quit his or her deputy job because you're really not that active in fulfilling your duties. And this result is open to the public. I think that's a way to supervise the delegates in China. But I have doubts on how we do this. I think the people should supervise the deputies, not by the bureaucrats, not by the people who work in the Congress. Digital Congress, 数字人大, okay. Digital Congress. Right now it's all over the country because China has developed its technology, right? We see the outbreak of technology in China recent years, like DeepSeek, AI, everything. So they invented this digital forums for the Congress for deputy to do their job. So this is in Guangzhou, a district Congress in Guangzhou. Each deputy will lodge in and they have to, again, this, I think it's like two-sided swords, double-sided swords, to supervise the deputy to better exert their obligation. So there is a 代表随手拍, right? That means the deputy could Photoshop everything he see or she see in daily life and upload this to this system, and the corresponding government department will handle this issue. Okay, and they will record their attendance in the system, right? So if you attend your record is 0, you attend 0 meetings, that might be a problem, right? So they can submit their proposals and suggestions to the system. So this is how this work. Okay, they have this different digital channel to record people's, and they have people in charge or watch these deputies, whether they do their job fine. And quite frequently, the LPC will publicize the deputy receiving day on the WeChat. And you can see who the deputies and when you can see them and where you can meet them. And you can bring your complaints, your problems to this workstation and meet with your deputy. And they will. I think it's written in the local regulation that each deputy should attend those meetings at least, how much time, a year or a month. If you fail in attend those meetings, again, that looks very bad for the deputy, and he may not get re-election. For most of the time, they solve problems like we call it people's livelihood, right? 民生实事, to provide a better livelihood for the people. Most of the time, it's about public transportation, public education, health, something like that. Not political issues, but economic or something you can do to make a difference. So you can see they gave this, how to say it, 锦旗, how to say it, thank you letters, right, to the deputies. They solve their problems to make their life easier, right, to better. So most of the time, if you look at those records, it's about give students a new chair, new sets of chair and table, to build a new bridge or road, something like that. But I think it's useful, right? It's not that high level issue, but that's what the people need in daily life. About supervision oversight, the Supervision Law in 2007 provided all in all 7 ways of supervise of supervision. Those are the written in the law, but innovation, what I call innovation, is not written in the law. So that's why it's called innovation. So on one hand, some supervision method is written in the law, so that's legalization. On the other hand, it's not written in law, but it's at work, it's experiment, so it's innovation. Like in Guangdong, they created the way of online budget supervision, because power or purse is a major function for a parliament, right? Control the purse of the government, control the expenditure, how you get money, how you spend your money. So they created this online system to, like, they call it whole process, 全过程的监督, whole process to supervise the government spend the people's money, right? So each deputy can lodge in the system to watch each department how they spend their budget. And also a 民生实施票决 is also a well explored all over the country by the local people's Congress. Also, the 民生 is something like those little issues, but important issues for the people. Innovation, I gave you one example. It's about how the Congress supervise a court. So I think it's a very unique Chinese practice, right? Because in Western country, it's checks and balance. The court only, I think the court mainly supervise the Congress by judicial review, right? They can check whether the law is constitutional or not. But in China, it's different. The Congress supervises the court, not the vice versa. So before the election law is made, they experiment the way of supervision, like 个案监督, 述职评议, 错案追究. But all those methods they are not absorbed by the supervision law, right? So they are not absorbed by the law. That means officially they are not acceptable by the authority, because individual case supervision might affect judicial independence, right? How can a deputy change the verdict of a judge, right? So after the supervision law is made, the local people Congress, they still experiment new methods like those, make assessment on judicial officials, like they assess the work of the judges and the prosecutors, and they assess the quality of the verdicts, and they evaluate certain types, like I think when I look at the examples, a city, they may organize a deputy to look at the case of 金融诈骗, right? If that is an important issue for that city or province, they will organize deputy to look at those issues, and something like that, right? Or 黑社会的这个 organized crimes, those are the types of cases they look at. And this is what I just mentioned, 两官评议, right? So they publicize, they select randomly some judges they want to access, and they publicize the name of the judges on their website and ask people to give opinions or complaints on that judge. And then the judge will report his work to the deputies. And if the deputies are happy with their work, they will give them a certificate that says, we evaluated work and we're satisfied with your work. So this is how they supervise. So I think it's also like an innovation. Finally, legislation. So China has this hierarchy, right? Hierarchy of legislative system with the constitution at the top and the regulation level down, right? In China, local lawmaking has special functions. Like I think there are mainly three functions for the local laws. First, to implement central law, because central law, most of the time, central law is very abstract, right? Because China is large, China is very diversified. You cannot just make one law and hope it apply to each local unit. So you need the local law to make specific regulation to the national law. Second, to make laws on local affairs. For example, right now, Guangzhou People's Congress are making law about what? About 康通例子点心 right? 就是粤式早茶的条例 right? So that's something special to local affair. I don't think Henan will make a law on 早茶, but so second function for them to make something special to this region. Third one is to experimenting law for the national law. That means to experiment something new. When it's mature, the National People's Congress will make a national law. Shenzhen did this most, like it make some groundbreaking laws, like 个人破产条例, right? Like 物业管理条, something like that. So China revised its legislative law in recently to provide a mechanism. I also published an article about this. To, on one hand, to keep the autonomy, active local lawmaking. On the other hand, to maintain a unified national legislative hierarchy. So they invented those mechanisms. I think right now the most hot topic is this one, right? 备案审查 is the most hot topic in China right now. It's like when a local authority make laws, then the NPCSC will check the constitutionality, the legality, and political standard of this local law. And I think another important innovation is the grassroots legislative outreach office. That's what I translate. It's called 基层立法联系点, but it's by the NPC. Right now, Chinese scholars, they use the word whole processed democracy, 全过程民主. Actually, that word was first mentioned by President Xi when he visited Shanghai, a grassroots outreach office in Shanghai. He said, wow, this is a whole process democracy. So it's called 手提地, right? It's first mentioned here. And then this theory was developed. Guangdong has a basic level, basic grassroots outreach office. And it's this example is a very good example for how this basic level station absorb people's idea and translate it to the national legislative body. This disabled gentleman, this disabled man, when the NPCSC, they want to make a law about how to assist 无障碍, how to assist the disabled people. He was disabled, and he gave a suggestion that to the grassroots outreach office. He says, in the village, right, in the rural area, the law should also consider how the peasant, how the rural area people, disabled people to get out, to make their transportation more, accessible. And the NPCSC adopted his idea, and the leader in the NPCSC lawmaking affair paid a visit to this man and thank you him for give this suggestion. Okay, so this is I think it's a very good example how the high level authority interact with the very low grassroots people, right? So it's not only the NPC built up this basic level unit. LPC also built up this, like Guangdong, they set this provincial People's Congress in all the streets, all the grass units to get a piece of ideas from the deputies and the people how to make the law more accessible to the people, to better serve the people, okay? So then finally, I'm happy I finished here in time. So if we look at this, I think this will give us idea of how China rule so effectively, how China maintain stability and development, right? Not from a Western style democracy, not by the Western style governance, but in China's unique way. All those ideas, all those examples tell us, right? They innovated this mechanism to absorb grassroots opinions, to get the voice of the people. And also, I think why they emphasize on strengthening the ties, because the ties are weak, right? The ties are weak, that's why President Xi separately, repeatedly emphasize on we should strengthen the ties, because he know people are very important. The ties are important. And in reality, the tie is not that strong. So that's why we really strengthen the tie. And to supervise local government, that's also help the party, help the central authority to better to deal with the crisis of agent, right? To deal with this agent delegates problem, to better supervise the local bureaucrats to do their job well. And China is a large country, to keep the legislative in a harmony order, right? To keep the harmony and better exert the local autonomy. That's why we should improve the legislative procedure. Okay. So in Larry Diamond's book, Consolidation of Democracy, he divided when indicators of democratic consolidation, top elites, organization, and mass public. That's how democracy is consolidated. I have a column in Guangdong Congress publication. I think what I observed fits this theory. So the way we see it, People's Congress in China get the dynamic for the development of People's Congress in China also come from these three levels: the central law and the standing committee of the Congress and the mass, right? The voters' interaction with their deputies. Last year, I made a video with the Guangdong People's Congress. This man from UK, he live in Zhongshan city, and he's not invited by the government, but he do it by himself. He make a short video to the Western world to introduce China's governance. Try to tell the world a real China, because China has some. Okay, so they made a video. So the Guangdong People Congress funded him and make video together about this English video about how the People's Congress is a important pillar for the foundation for the socialist democracy. How they serve the people and get opinion from people, and like a very efficient problem-solving system in China. Okay, I think I will stop here, and if you're interested, I have some previous publications on the election, because election is another large topic. We don't have enough time to talk about election, but I wrote this in my previous publication. If you are interested, you can read it. This is one of my well-received books about the regulation, the institutionalization of rules and procedures in China's People's Congress. Has many awards, and I'm still working on this project. And this book is a work by many top scholars in China, political scientists and legal scholars. It's not myself. I just help them get together their work, their ideas. I think it's a very wonderful book to summarize the innovations in People's Congress China. Okay, thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sun, for giving us a very comprehensive and multidisciplinary study of the Chinese national local national and local People's Congress system. In the West, there are different names for legislative institutions like parliament or Congress. China has this 人民代表大会, and it is a rather unique kind of Chinese political institutions. I think they probably originated from the former Soviet Union. The Soviets were the equivalent of the 人民代表大会, I suppose. But of course, since the establishment of PRC, China has developed its own system of Soviets or People's Congresses to suit China's circumstances. And Professor Sun has also mentioned how the People's Congress work fit into the Chinese conception of democracy, a Chinese-style democracy called the 全过程人民民主, maybe translated as all process people's democracy. I think Hong Kong people may not know too much about this kind of democracy, because Hong Kong people are more familiar with Western style democracy. But I think there's also much to be learned from the Chinese style democracy and the work of the deputies of the People's Congresses, particularly at the local level. So may we thank Professor Sun for your excellent presentation. Yeah, and thank you to all of you for your participation, both those online audience and all of you here. So I look forward to seeing you in future events organized by the faculty, and we also look forward to future visits by Professor Sun to our faculty.